Former Vice President Mike Pence is finally stepping up his attacks, his criticisms of Donald Trump. Now, we've heard here and there accurate criticisms of Trump, especially when it comes to his attempts to overturn a free and fair election in 2020. But still, for the role that Mike Pence played in that, meaning the way that Trump tried to pressure Mike Pence to unconstitutionally be a part of this coup attempt, you would think after that, even though Mike Pence did do the correct thing on January 6th, we would have seen a more harsh criticism, consistent, loud, proud criticism of Trump that we really just didn't see to the extent that we should have with Mike Pence in the years following January 6th and Trump's coup attempt. And now, after Trump's latest indictment for the actions involved in that attempt to stay in power despite losing the election, the fake elector scheme, the pressuring of election officials, trying to disenfranchise voters, all of which are outlined in the now unsealed second federal third total indictment of Donald Trump, Mike Pence is stepping up, like I said, his criticisms a little bit, which is interesting to see. Still, in my mind, not enough. And on previous indictments, he's done the normal talking points about how Trump is being unfairly targeted. But here he's getting a little bit more close to reason. I'll show you some reporting from Newsweek, then we'll get to a clip of him talking about this. Former Vice President Mike Pence, as Newsweek writes, is starting to show he's willing to go where only a handful of his fellow Republican presidential hopefuls are, as GOP frontrunner Donald Trump heads to court on another series of federal charges. And I'm recording this episode as Trump is being once again arraigned in D.C. Mike Pence is going to the mat, still a top contender, but languishing in the polls. Pence in recent days has begun to lodge sharper criticisms at the former president for his role in the January 6th riots at the U.S. Capitol, creating space between himself and fellow candidates who see any criticism of Trump as a third rail with voters who still see him as the de facto leader of the GOP. And we've definitely seen the way that so many different GOP candidates, even though they're running against Donald Trump, seem absolutely terrified to actually criticize him. Not just, hey, I think I'm the better candidate, or hey, some of his judgment calls were off, but call Trump out for who he is, what he did, and the danger that he poses if he were to get into office, God forbid, once again. And then here's Trump, or I should say Mike Pence, following Trump's third indictment on Fox News.
I was clear on that throughout. I was clear with President Trump throughout, all the way up to the morning of January 6th. But let's be clear on this point. It wasn't just that they asked for a pause. The president specifically asked me and his...
And this is talking about Trump's pressuring of Pence to go along with this fake elector scheme, rejecting the actual electors, the actual electoral count, and trying to, in the process, disenfranchise millions of voters by saying, no, your vote in your state that then decided who the state would send as their electors, it doesn't matter. I choose, as Mike Pence, I guess, or Trump chooses who is legitimate and gets to choose that he stays president.
Gaggle of crackpot lawyers asked me to literally reject votes, which would have resulted in the issue being turned over to the House of Representatives, and literally chaos would have ensued. So, Martha, people can read the indictment, and frankly, I've said before, I had hoped it had not come to this point. You know, I don't know if the government can meet the standard, the burden of proof beyond reasonable doubt for criminal charges. But the American people deserve to know that President Trump and his advisors didn't just ask me to pause. They asked me to reject votes, return votes, essentially to overturn the election and to keep faith with the oath that I made to the American people and to Almighty God. I rejected that out of hand, and I did my duty that day.
So I sort of miscommunicated what he's addressing there in the middle of the clip. So on one end, they either wanted him to pretend to recognize fraudulent electors, which is what this indictment focuses on in part, and then pretend Trump won when he didn't, or just reject the count, don't certify the election as Mike Pence is obligated to do, and send it back to, they would say, to the states, and then eventually let the House of Representatives decide. It would have been a disaster. And while still that is not harsh enough, it is at least harsher for Mike Pence. He also wrote on Twitter saying today's indictment serves as an important reminder. Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. And you notice in his explanation there in the Fox News clip, he definitely still is caveating, still saying, I don't even know if we should have gotten to this, and I don't know if they'll be able to prove these things, which technically none of us know if they'll be able to prove them, but still is uncomfortable with legal accountability, even though he's saying Trump shouldn't be president again, which those are two separate conversations. Should you get a position of power versus should you be prosecuted for your actions when you were in that position of power? But with Trump, he should be, with his due process, with everything being fair, of course, whatever that means, held legally accountable to the fullest extent of the law for his attempts to undermine our democratic process, overthrow a democratic election, install himself president, all the details of which we've walked through extensively in the past. But there it is. What do you think, Mike Pence? Is it interesting at all that he's willing to, more than some of the other GOP candidates, acknowledge that, yeah, maybe Trump's not the big victim that he's pretending to be? Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are able to be uploaded to the YouTube channel, plus get the bonus show on the weekends, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership, and there's a link in the description.